Welcome back, decoders, to the channel. And in this video, we're going to talk about some amazing connections I found. Predictive programming before 9/11 even happened. And I just wanted to make this quick video because I was going to do a live stream, but instead I decided to make this a quick video just to be straight to the point. A lot of people have been saying that my live streams are too long and drawn out, and I repeat myself, which is true. So in this video, I just wanted to get straight to the point. And before we get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to two different men who were involved in finding this original connection that I will add on to. The first one is Labda 115 on YouTube. You guys go subscribe to him. I watch his videos often. He has some amazing information. So Labda 115 on YouTube. He was the one that brought my attention to this, but the guy that he got this information from is a new YouTuber going by the name Predictive Programming. So go check out him as well. Both these guys were instrumental in me discovering my first connection to this crazy predictive programming that I'm about ready to show you. So please go subscribe to these two guys and give them a like. I would appreciate it. They both deserve it. So with that being said, let's jump into the information. So as you can see, guys, and I probably don't even need to say anything to you right off the bat, but look at this. So maybe many of you have already seen this, but there was I don't know if this is a magazine or what this is, but it was a Sesame Street cover magazine or something that came out October 1976. And you can see that the Cookie Monster, one of the Muppets, right, has taken 3 chunks out of each of the buildings in reference to the World Trade Center, guys. And I mean, first of all, what are the chances of this? You know, you have the 2 World Trade Centers being taken out, essentially, and the front of the thing says monsters on the loose, okay? But the first thing that I want to point out here, which is what the other 2 guys I mentioned before had already discovered, is that if you measure from October 1st, 1976, because this article seems to just be referencing October 1976. So if you go the very first day of October 1976 and you measure from this clear 9/11 predictive programming to 9/11 itself, you're going to get a very interesting number. So here it is, guys. From the very first day of October 1976, you're going to get exactly to 9/11 2001, 9/11 1 days. Okay, 9111. The reason this is absolutely insane is because this date that I'm measuring to is 9/11/01. See this, guys? If we go 9/11/01, it's 9111 because you drop the 0. Okay, so this is the exact date of 9/11. If you write it in this format, 9/11/01, this is the same numerology, 9/11/01, from the October 1976 Cookie Monster taking the World Trade Centers down to 9/11. I mean, what an absolute joke, guys. I mean, you see, guys, why I had to share this with you. Absolute joke. What are the chances that it comes out perfectly to the very date, encoded perfectly from this article, you know? In case you guys don't know, this is a lunar eclipse back here, which is going to tie in with the Jesuit order and the eclipse that's coming up next year, possibly. Because when I looked at 2001, I didn't see actual eclipse that happened in the United States in 2001. So possibly this eclipse right here is pointing to next year's big eclipse that's coming. So we will see. But let's just show. Now, here's where I just took this original information. As I told you before, I didn't discover this original connection, the 9111 days, from the article from the Muppets, what I just showed you, to 9/11. I didn't discover that, but I'm going to show you more of just how scripted Sesame Street is with the whole 9/11 ritual and George W. Bush. Okay, so Most of you guys know what Sesame Street is. It's a children's program. Remember, George W. Bush was reading a children's book to children on the day of 9/11, and this is a children's program, right? So again, it's connected to children. And if you scroll down, you're going to see, well, first of all, let me start with this. The name of it is Sesame Street, right? And this cookie monster on the front of this image is obviously connected to Sesame Street. Now, George W. Bush, the president during 9/11, was a member of Skull and Bones, the Order 322, the Brotherhood of Death, okay, based out of New Haven, Connecticut. Now, George W. Bush was born in New Haven, Connecticut, which is going to come up here in a second. So George W. Bush was born in New Haven, Connecticut, where the Skull and Bones Secret Society is founded at Yale, which is also in New Haven. And again, what are the chances of that? So considering that we connected already this Cookie Monster cover to 9/11 perfectly, George W. Bush being a member of Skull and Bones, as I'll go down here and show you guys just to verify. Hold on a minute. Yeah, right here, guys. Among prominent alumni are former presidents William Howard Taft, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush, all prominent members of Skull and Bones. Okay, so his father and George W. Bush, who was president during 9/11, both members of Skull and Bones. So let's see how this ties in with. The connection with Sesame Street. So if you type in Sesame Street, which is the name of the show, which has a lot of programming. If I spell it right, I didn't spell it right, guys. Sesame Street. Let's show you just how crazy this is. So if you type in Sesame Street and you do a match, you're going to get Skull and Bones. And ignore the Peter's chair for a minute. Let's just move that to the bottom. But just look at this, guys. Skull and Bones, Sesame Street, a 3 out of 4 cipher match to Skull and Bones. And again, George W. Bush connected because he was president on 9/11. He was a member of Skull and Bones, just like his dad. And again, this article is about monsters on the loose. So let's decode this phrase, guys. Monsters on the loose. All right. So monsters on the loose equals '91. And the day that this article was referencing to, the first day of October 1976, was the 91 days left in the year. And so 91 days left in the year on the cover of this October 1976, and it says monsters on the loose, which equals 91. That's not the only 91. We'll bring up another one for you. Oh yeah, sorry, that is the only number 91, guys. So monsters on the loose, 91. This article or this Sesame Street thing was released on the day leaving 91 days in the year. Don't forget, George W. Bush was born on 7/6, July 6th. This article was released in the year 1976, and Skull and Bones and Sesame Street both equal 76. Again, George W. Bush born on 7/6. The Guidestones went down a few years ago on his birthday when he was turning 76. Sesame Street 76, and this article or this Sesame Street thing with the Twin Towers came out in the year 76. So absolutely perfectly scripted all around. So let's make even more connections with this. If you look it up on Wiki, you'll find that the Muppets or Sesame Street has been tied very heavily to the World Trade Center. So if you go down here, so anytime you think of the Muppets or Sesame Street, all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to show the connection between Sesame Street and 9/11. So as you can see here, it says, following the attacks on September 11, 2001, two shows in the production at the time, Sesame Street and Bear in the Big Blue House, took responsibility in helping children cope with feelings brought up in the aftermath. So again, remember, George W. Bush was reading to children on 9/11, and now Sesame Street, after the event actually happened, remember, they already gave us predictive programming of 9/11 many years before it even happened. And then after the event happened, it was Sesame Street who took it upon themselves as a responsibility to help the children cope. And Sesame Street just happened to be in its 33rd season when 9/11 happened. We know how big that number is, the 33. As a matter of fact, on this cover, you can see that there's 3 bytes taken out of each tower, which if you add up, you would say 33, right? So another 33 encoded in this picture, and then the World Trade Centers went down in the Sesame Street's 33rd season. And then here's what they wrote, guys. It says, we felt the need to do something in response to 9/11, but we knew we had to be very careful because our viewers are so young and parents are returning to educational programs as a safe haven for kids. Notice it uses the word safe haven, just like Skull and Bones was found in New Haven, right? Connecticut. So interesting that they use the word haven here. But anyways, it was Sesame Street who took it upon themselves to be a shining light for the kids after 9/11, right? And, as you can see here, guys, this is their show after 9/11. It brings into connection the firefighters who were supposedly active on 9/11. But yeah, as you can read here, the season premiere episode 3981 indirectly referenced the events of 9/11 by having Hooper's store catch fire and showing how the event affects Elmo. So again, super connected, guys, with Sesame Street and this original article that was clear predictive programming. And if anyone can see this and not understand that this was absolute clear predictive programming, and it came out just the perfect amount of days before the event, the date is encoded in, then you just cannot deny it. So let's jump into the next part of this. And I told you already about George W. Bush. Well, his mother, if you go to here, his mother was on an episode of Sesame Street. And funny thing was, it was the 266th or the 2660 episode of Sesame Street when George W. Bush's mother, Barbara Bush, was on the Sesame Street. And the 266 is important because Pope Francis, our current Pope, is the 266th Pope. And the book that she was reading, let me scroll down. Barbara Bush reads Peter's Chair to Big Bird, the Count, and the Kids. So here it is. Barbara Bush, George W. Bush's mother, reading the book called Peter's Chair on Sesame Street on the 2660 episode, which is a reference to the Jesuit order and the Catholic Pope, who is currently the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis. So again, let me show you how this is clearly connected. So let me type in the name of the book that Barbara Bush was reading, called Peter's Chair. And if you type that in and you do a match on that, you're going to see that Peter's Chair, let me type Pope Francis in, hold on. Pope Francis is a direct match to Peter's Chair and Sesame Street. So notice that Barbara Bush was reading the book Peter's Chair on the 2660. Let me go back and show you on that episode. And Pope Francis, let me type him in for you guys. Pope Francis. So he is the 266th Pope, right? Let me pull up his thing. Hold on. Let me see if I can actually find where it says this. 266th Pope. Actually, guys, let me just type it in so you guys can actually see that I'm verifying this information, because they didn't make it easy there. 266th Pope. So here is our current Pope, Pope Francis. He was elected at 76. Remember, George Bush was born on 7/6. His mother, Barbara Bush, was reading the 2660 on the 2660 episode of Sesame Street. Pope Francis is the 266th Pope, and the book that Barbara Bush was reading on the 266 episode was called Peter's Chair. Once again, let me show you. Barbara Bush reads Peter's Chair, and Peter's Chair is a direct match to Sesame Street and Pope Francis. In fact, Pope Francis in 3 out of the 4 ciphers. Now remember, it is Saint Peter who is known as the first. The tradition accredits Peter as the first bishop of Rome, or the Pope, right? So it's Saint Peter who was the first Pope originally, and now you have the 266th Pope, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, being Pope Francis, having a direct match to Peter's Chair. So definitely a Catholic Pope connection with Barbara Bush's ritual, okay? Absolutely undeniable. And Peter's Chair, just so you guys know, is a children's book. So again, lots of children references, just like George W. Bush was reading a children's book on 9/11. And let's also don't not forget that this episode where she was reading, let me close this out for a minute. The episode where Barbara Bush was reading Peter's Chair was released on July 12th, 1990, okay? And the reason this is important, guys, is because January 12th, 1990. And the reason this is important because her husband, George H.W. Bush, was the president before 9/11. And he came out on September 11th, 1990, and said a new world order. So her husband, George H.W. Bush, as you guys can read here, makes a bold pronouncement on September 11th, 1990, exactly 11 years before 9/11, 2001, that there will be a new world order. In that same year, Barbara Bush is on Sesame Street reading Peter's Chair, okay? So again, that happens the same year that he gives that. In fact, if you go and you look, it's going to be the 122 day that she read this St. Peter's, or she read Peter's Chair on a date numerology of 122. And look at this, guys. St. Peter's, or Peter's Chair, equals 122, like Pope Francis. And she was reading that book on 122 date numerology, a reference to the name of the book, which equals 122. That was 242 days exactly before her husband came out on 9/11, 1990, and said there will be a new world order. Okay. So crazy stuff, guys. Super scripted all around. Going back all the way to this original find. Thank you to both of these guys, Lambda 115 and Predictive Programming on YouTube. Go check them out. One more connection I want to make, guys, is there's an episode. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on a second. There's an episode of Sesame Street where a pilot flies a plane. I'll have to go back to this thing and show you guys. Hold on a minute. So Sesame Street and 9/11 connection. Let's just look into this for a second. So the World Trainer was referenced many times in Sesame Street. I just showed you the Barbara Bush one. And I showed you this, right? But let's also look into another episode, if I can find it here. Hold on. Here it is, guys. Episode 3431 of Sesame Street, which was released on January 8th, 1996, so before 9/11 even happened. And in the episode, it's the song called I'm a Little Airplane. In fact, the whole show involves a lot of airplanes. I'm a Little Airplane. Remember, it was airplanes that hit the two towers, right? The Twin Towers. But if you go down, you're going to see that in this episode, a girl narrates a film of her helping her dad, a pilot, fly a small plane. They fly through New York City past the World Trade Center. Okay, so in this episode, they have planes all over, and planes are what hit New York City on 9/11, and then they have a plane flying past the World Trade Center in this episode. This episode was released on 1/8/1996, so before the planes hit the two towers. If you measure from this episode to the actual event, let me find it here. It was 5 years, 247 days, okay? The reason this 247 is important is because in this episode, they reference the World Trade Center. And in Gematria, World Trade Center equals 247. So this episode about planes flying around the World Trade Center, okay, came out on January 1st or January 8th, 1996. They fly a plane next to the World Trade Center, and World Trade Center equals 247. And this happened 247 days after the anniversary of the episode coming out. Again, perfectly scripted, guys, in every way. I'm sure you could go back and find so many different connections between Sesame Street and between, the Bushes and 9/11. So one more number I want to talk about, then I'll finish this up. So 84, guys, big number. You're going to notice that the title on the front of this cover was called Monsters on the Loose. And the president during 9/11, the monster, George W. Bush, who was an integral part of bringing down the towers, he just happens to equal President George W. Bush equals 84, just like Monsters on the Loose, just like Brotherhood of Death. Remember, he was part of Brotherhood of Death. Just like Revelation 9/11. Remember, 9/11 talks about the angel of the bottomless pit. And don't forget that George W. Bush was born in New Haven, Connecticut, which is exactly where Skull and Bones is located. That also equals 84, like President George W. Bush. He was born in that city, and he was part of the Brotherhood of Death, which also equals 84. Now, the Jesuit order also equals 84, the military order of the Catholic Church, just like United States, the Catholic Church, the eclipse ritual, like Jesuit, and the Jesuits are all known for their eclipses. And don't forget that this magazine has the eclipse on it. So this 84 is a big number, guys, just like George Walker Bush equals 84, President George W. Bush equals 84. And again, New Haven, Connecticut, where George W. Bush was born, equals 84 in both these ciphers. So absolutely undeniable, guys. I just wanted to go over this and show you just how incredible this information is. Thank you again to the two guys that pointed me onto this. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Please give a like and a comment if you guys see anything else I missed. And have a good holidays, guys. We'll be back with a live stream in a few days. But take care out there. God bless. I'll see you in the next one.